Today's show brought to you live from Lounge Media Group Studios. It's Pedro and the Freight Hound with the Logistics Lounge. The views and opinions expressed on this show by its guests are not necessarily those of Lounge Media Group or the show host. So if you sue someone, make sure it's the party responsible for hurting your feelings. Also, grow up, be an adult, and understand not everyone thinks like you. And that's okay.
What's cracking?
Yo, what up, Pedro?
What's up there, Mr. Hound?
Brother, I am as you could say, itching. I'm itching. There's a feeling in the air. There's a smell going around that next weekend, brother. About to be a great time. How's your week going? How's your day been?
My my day, my week is great. Finally finished with all of my generator project, both NorCal and SoCal. So, dude, I know I'm telling you, it's been, dude. It was only stressful because all the things that we thought we planned for were the things that went wrong, and it's like, dang, like man, we like thought we had this nipped in the bud here, and the problem still was that. So, yeah, it just is what it is. You got to expect stuff like that when you're delivering those many things and to homes and blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, that's going great. Happy with that. Just moving and chugging along, getting ready to, man, what is it? Today's Wednesday. So a week from tomorrow, be flying in there to Nashville, man, for large cars and guitars, dude. Me and you to road trip at the little 4 hours on over to Bristol. So that's what I'm doing, man. I got a lot to do this weekend. I got to do some stuff to my car, install some new headlights, and do the brakes and all that stuff like that, and maybe replace my battery and everything. But so that's gonna be my focus, man. What about you?
Yeah, well, as you can see, this hat right here I'm wearing is a coonskin cap, and being a Tennessean, I take great pride in this state, and Davy Crockett, man, one of the greatest stories of all time. But you know where he's from, Pedro?
Where's that, man?
He's from a little town called Limestone, Tennessee, which just happens to be about 30 minutes right up the road from the one and only Bristol, Tennessee. So you want to talk about some energy that we're bringing to it. You saw the post I made on Facebook, man. There's just a feeling in the air. This is going to be it's the Freight family reunion. And to those that can't make it, watch out because we're going to be putting out some content. But if you are within earshot of that town, show up. You will not regret it because it's something special. It's something special. And did you see the announcement? They're going to be picking 6 trucks out of this show to compete in the National Truck Builders Championship in Atlanta, Georgia at Atlanta Motor Speedway at the beginning of November later this year. So, good opportunity to go talk to some good, hardworking, red-blooded American folks, hear their stories. I'm excited, man. This is why we do it. So,
I am right there with you, bro. You get me extra excited because you went last year. I didn't go.
I know, dude.
And
I know. And
you were
seeing the advancements that they're making, dude, and talking to Tony again and Brandon, and just like the feedback we've gotten, like it makes it that much more special, dude. I mean, it really is. So, yeah.
I can't wait, man. We're gonna have a fucking ball, dude. Especially that Airbnb that we
Oh
got.
yeah, dude.
Down,
Hey,
man.
and Steve's bringing his golf cart too, dude. That
freaking
jacked up golf cart, man.
And we're gonna have a nice little clique, man.
Yeah, man, we're gonna be making
Steve, Ethan, Charles's wife, like Charles's son, man. We're gonna have a nice little group, bro. Just hanging out and having a good freaking time, man.
Get to see old friends and make new at the same time, and get to dude Montgomery Gentry, Tony's playing, Long Haul Paul's playing. A lot of good music, and the fireworks show this year, he said it's going to be bigger than it was last year. And I'll tell you, dude, it was 15 minutes straight, and these weren't freaking whistling kiddies, and scooter sticks. Like, we're talking some big boomers. So show up if you like to have a good time.
I'm all about it, bro. I'm all about it. I'm excited to get like a lot of that nighttime footage and stuff too.
Oh yeah, that's where it's at. Dude, the lights, man, the chicken lights. Sweet.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. Like I told Charles, man, like even though we're kind of there, we are there to work for the lounge. Like it's not gonna be a Matt's thing or Texas Truck.
It don't feel like work, dude.
Yeah, man. We're just gonna get to hang out and chill with the homies, have a good time, and in the process, we'll be getting some content, doing interviews and so forth, so on through that. So. Charles is looking forward to it, man. He's like, dude, this is the one event so far this year that I get to go to that I don't have to work. I was like, yeah, man, you ain't got no speeches, you ain't got no shows to do, nothing, bro. You just get to come hang out and look at freaking trucks, and him and Tony are good friends. So I was like, dude, you just hang out. But yeah, I'm freaking stoked, man. Can't wait.
Well, you got going on in the news today, brother?
Well, it's nice you asked, man. We're going to talk about real quick some more ELDs that have been taken off of the approved list from the FMCSA. So, without further ado, Lounge Media News sponsored by AR Doc Pro, and as always, sourced from truckingnewshub.com. All righty, Spidey. On May 12th, Monday, the FMCSA announced that they removed 8 ELDs from the agency's list of approved devices for failure to meet minimum federal requirements. Those 8 devices are Always Track, Command Alcon Track It, ELDX, Gorilla Safety Compact ELD, HCSS ELD, LB Technologies Fleet Track, Simplex ELD 2 Go, and Trucker Path ELD Pro. So I will say that this is the first time I read one of these lists that I actually knew or have heard more than one of these companies. And it's also shocking how many ELD companies are out there. Like, it really is disturbing. FMCSA says the carriers using one of the revoked ELDs listed above or named above, are advised to take the following action. Discontinue using the ELD and revert to paper logs or an alternate logging software to record your hours of service, and replace those ELDs with compliant ones that are listed on the FMCSA's approved list for registered devices before July 11th, 2025. For those of you that don't know, the FMCSA does carry a 60-day grace period to replace to replace non-compliant ELDs. During that time, law enforcement and safety officials are advised not to cite drivers that were using those revoked ELDs. However, after July 11th, officers who encounter the driver using one of these revoked devices will issue a citation for no record of duty status, and they will place that driver out of status until they can get their self-compliant again. Finally, if the ELD provider does correct all identified deficiencies for the device, the FMCSA says that it will put them back on the list of approved registered devices and inform the entire industry that they can now start using them again. However, FMCSA strongly encourages motor carriers to not wait for those actions and to go ahead and just take one of the steps that they listed above and just get the stuff replaced and don't even worry about it. And then if you see the ELD that you were using, go back on the approved list. You do like that one, you want to go back to it, by all means do. But in the meantime, just make sure that you protect yourselves.
You want my 2 cents?
Yeah, bro, of course.
Buy an old truck and run paper logs.
Man, hey, it's starting to become more and more popular. Man.
I mean, dude, are you kidding me? Like, how many ELDs just got revoked? What, 5? These carriers, these trucking companies are being required to go and spend money on a product that might get freaking revoked once again. Come on.
Yeah. I don't know what all the requirements they have to meet. Obviously, I mean, I would assume that it's, I wouldn't say strict, but I would assume it's stuff that just makes sense, like, storing data and recording things, probably blah, blah, blah. But, again, my thing is how many ELD providers there are, man. Like,
I had no idea, dude.
I don't know, but neither do I. Like, you would think, there's, got to be only 10, right? You know what I mean? Like, there's no way the industry would let, or the FMCSA would just let whoever do this. But nope, completely wrong. In typical FMCSA fashion, they don't give a shit. They just, let the industry do whatever the industry does. Hey, and, they hold no one accountable or anything. So
that's free market, baby. Free market.
It is.
We're seeing it with tech today, too.
I know it is, but we talk about a lot, Hunter, man. Like, I'm sorry to all the tech bros, but dude, some of them get in these spaces and they just don't understand it. And they build the product wrong, or it doesn't do the right things, or whatever it is. And so, not saying that's the case with these, but man, people get into things and don't know what they're doing, and ends up, just like you just said, puts these men and women out there under the gun to have to try to fork out more money to fix the problem. So,
yeah, and that's crazy too, to hear Trucker Path on there. Like,
I know. Yeah.
Like, what?
I know, man. That was one of the ones that I was like, wow, really? Okay. That's weird.
Whatever. If I were a smaller time ELD provider, I would be researching what they are kicking back on and I don't know. Maybe talk to the FMCSA and see what they want.
Yeah.
So
And what, dude, who knows? It could be dumb stuff, man. Maybe it could just be a simple thing as not reporting data correctly. I don't know. Like I said, it didn't say whatever. None of these things ever say, but yeah, I agree. They should go up, the new provider should go in there and look at what the old ones are doing wrong so they can make sure that they avoid those missteps.
Yeah. That would actually be an interesting show to have someday. But let's not get sidetracked. You ready to bring this guest on right here?
I very much am.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, y'all know Pedro and I have been dabbling in the world of warehousing. We still are not experts on it. So we just decided to find the guy, the warehouse nerd, the man himself, Mr. Kevin Lawton.
Hello.
Kevin, how we doing, brother?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Hey, it's a beautiful day. Great moving. Truck shows are coming up. We're thriving, man.
Yeah, I decided I would call in here from a fitting place. I'm at a truck stop here somewhere in the middle of Pennsylvania. I think I'm close by, maybe like Carlisle potentially. So, got a bunch of trailers around me outside the mobile. I call my mobile studio to be fancy, but really it's my minivan. So, yeah. But thanks for having me on tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and if there's any truck drivers in that area, if you find Kevin, you'll get a free hat and a T-shirt, courtesy of the Logistics Lounge.
I got some warehouses or sexy T-shirts in my car right now. So if they track it down, yeah, I got them.
I think there might be a trade in works here, but
Yeah.
Well, hey, brother, appreciate you hopping on, man. Know you're just busting it down from Detroit and just staying on the road, but let's go on and get to the grits of it, man. And we're gonna ask you the same question we ask everybody else: who is Kevin Lawton, and how did you get to where you are today as the new warehouse podcast guy, the warehouse nerd?
Yeah, definitely. Well, certainly didn't set out to be that guy, but I'm here now. So I didn't know what I wanted to do out of school, basically, and got a temp job in inventory control in a warehouse for a book publisher. Was distributing books, and that's really where I kind of got into the warehousing. I guess even like getting an understanding of like what that even entailed and what that was all about, because that certainly was not something that anyone in my family had done or anything close to me. Anybody close to me had worked in an operation or anything. So that's really where it started, and had a lot of focus on inventory control. Worked for that book publisher in the beginning, Simon & Schuster, then worked for Keurig Green Mountain coffee company for a couple of years, working hand in hand with their 3PL that they utilized, and was on site with them. And that's really where I got a ton more exposure to the warehouse. I think at that point I was still trying to figure out what I want to do with myself. Had a boss there that really kind of pulled me into the warehouse world, I'll say, and got a lot of exposure there. That was a huge building, like 1 million square feet, so a lot of stuff going on there, a lot of stuff to learn. Then worked for a couple smaller companies along the way, family-owned businesses doing different types of distribution. Helped them build out new distribution centers, which was really interesting. Which was like definitely a lot of experience in a little bit of time, which was I look back on it and say it's fun now, but I think at the time I'm like, what the hell am I doing, right?
Yeah.
Actually thinking like, do I want to do warehousing? It was definitely stressful, long hours, trying to do new projects, hire full-time staff, get them trained up, get all the processes in place, and just making it run like it should in the first place. And then and at some point I really wanted to embrace the career a little bit, but I wanted to learn more about the industry. And this was about maybe like seven years ago, about, I would say, when I started thinking about this. And just wasn't anything like fun or interesting to learn from in the warehousing industry. Everything was very like boring, dry. So I decided like, well, maybe I'll start something myself. And that's kind of the idea of the new warehouse came about. And yeah, we started as was going to start as a blog, but I was doing one of those projects, and yeah, it was just like I have no time to write and edit and do all that stuff. And then that same boss, actually, we worked together at 3 different companies, and he kept hiring me and hiring me. And he was like, "You should do a podcast." And so I got to give credit to him. He's my second guest on the podcast as well, if people want to go all the way back. But yeah, first episode came out in 2019, and yeah, so it's been about 6. That started like part time there, and then just kept going, and we're at almost like 600 episodes right now, and it's been quite a journey, a lot of opportunities, certainly a lot of exposure to warehouse stuff, but that's kind of how I got to where I am today. And I'm the new warehouse guy, I guess, as you guys put it there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, like you said, man, you have been at this since 2019, and I believe you've done close to about 700 episodes now, right?
Yeah. I think we got a couple different kind of episodes, right? So like our main episode, which comes out Monday, Wednesday, regular kind of podcast, that's almost at 600. But yeah, if you include like all the live streams and interviews we've done at trade shows and things like that, we're definitely somewhere around 700, I would say. Yeah.
Dude, that is highly impressive. So within that, like, because I know for us, it is difficult, to week in, week out, keep it fresh, stay up to date. So like, how do you keep your content fresh, and like, how do you, decide the topics and, what guests to feature, what's your thought process when it comes to, okay, it is Monday, we got a show this week, we got to bring it to the people. Like, what's that in your mind?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say I don't really have like any structure around that too much. I think maybe in the last year I've gotten some more structure around that, but it's definitely a grind. It's like you said. I mean, it's putting out content on a consistent basis is seems easy, like on the surface. Like, yeah, you just show up and talk a little bit, but there's a lot of scheduling and stuff that goes on like behind the scenes. And but in terms of like trying to come up with what to talk about, I mean, we typically are only interviewing people, so typically it depends on like what they're doing. I mean, like my primary focus is I think about my audience as that person that I was when I started the podcast, right? Like I was curious to learn about the industry, so I think about how do we talk to this company that's doing something interesting in the warehousing space, and how do we talk to them in a way that the person listening is gonna learn about that, and maybe potentially how can I put that into my warehouse operation, or maybe even sometimes like realize like, oh, that's not a good fit for me or something like that. So it's really just a conversation. We just talk about kind of what's going on with them, and then we talk about like what's going on with the industry as a whole, and hopefully try to get some best practices out of that. So is there a real thought process in there? I'm sure like somewhere like in the back of my head, but like formal, no, I wouldn't say so. Right? It's just kind of like it's kind of like who comes in my network and let's get you on the podcast. Let's talk about it.
So do you use like your past experiences in warehousing and logistics, like to kind of drive these conversations and bring awareness, to improvements in processing? And, Pedro, who's the guest that we had on last week or the week before that is in warehouse consulting?
Oh, crap.
His name's slipping my mind right now.
It's not Joe. Joe did the real estate. Give me a second. I'm going to look at the calendar. I'll get back to you.
Either way. So is that something that you utilize, Kevin, in your conversations, like just based off of like your experiences?
Adrian Betts. Sorry to interrupt. Adrian Betts.
Oh, love Adrian.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah, Adrian's the man. All right.
Yeah. He's like, I call him like the supply chain poet, right? I mean, he's always
warehouse wizard is what I call him.
Yeah. He's got like all these great lines and ways to say things. Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah. We just had him on the podcast a couple weeks ago too, as well. Yeah, yeah, known him for a little bit, but yeah, he's a great dude. And but yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I definitely like draw from my experience, right? And I think that when I connect with my audience and stuff and see them like at trade shows and conferences, and yeah, that's one of the things that I think they appreciate is that I'm looking at it from the perspective of like hey, I'm in my mind like I'm still that warehouse operations manager that I was a couple years ago, and I'm thinking about this solution like could it be a fit for me, right? Or could it be that? And um, you see, I'm sure you guys see too, like that's there's some podcasts out there where it's just like people focus, from the sales and marketing side, and they don't really understand like the day to day nitty gritty of it. And I think that's a little bit of a differentiator. I think people appreciate that kind of on the floor experience.
Absolutely. So, Taylor Barker, what's going on, brother? If you are not at Large Cars and Guitars, I'm gonna drive to Kingston Springs and see you, brother.
We're
But
gonna steal your Camaro. That's what we're gonna do.
I think it's in the shop right now, man. But so from the research I've done, it seems like one of the things you've really emphasized on is the balance between human workers and automation and warehousing. So like, backstage I was talking to you about, Glenn Lepresti and a few others that we've spoke about. But what are some of like the trends in robotics and AI that like you're getting excited about that you see working and reshaping the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting time to be a part of it, and that's one of the exciting things. I think when I started the podcast in 2019, like unknowingly, in the past 5 years or so, this idea of robotics in the warehouse has really exploded, and there's a ton of people doing really interesting, smart, creative things around technology in the space. But I think there's a big question of like what's actually practical in the setting as well. And I think that's probably in your research. That's pretty good research, I'll say. In your research there, why I talk a lot about kind of that balance, like where's the human element still of that. But I think the trends we're seeing. I think we're getting to a point where now because for a long time, like I think robotics and automation on a higher level was kind of only accessible to like an Amazon or a Walmart, right? Or these big players that they have money to test, they have money to do R&D. Like maybe they try a solution and maybe it doesn't work out after a year, and they got the cash to do that, right? But when we look at a lot of the warehousing, all over the world and the country, especially like it's a lot of like smaller, medium-sized type businesses, right? And they don't have like a whole R&D department just to like focus on like a warehouse robot, right? So I think one of the trends seeing now is we're finally getting to that point where there are solutions coming out that are focused on those small and medium-sized businesses, and they're much more aware of that, and they're much more conscientious of that, and being at either a pricing model or a pricing point that makes sense for them to utilize, but also a very practical application that makes sense for them to get started with robotics or automation. And I think that's a great trend. Like I'd love to see more of that, because we talked to a ton of people that are doing robotics and stuff on the podcast, and some of them are like really cool, really creative, but they are like super expensive, right? To
Right.
be able to even do, right? So some of these warehouse operators are like, well, there's no way that I could even do that. And I think that's created like a little bit of like doubt in some companies, some operations mind, where like, oh well, I'll never be able to do that. And then that kind of takes them out of the picture for maybe solutions that are like still robotic or automation, but they don't even think to explore that, because they just automatically assume like it's going to be, the price is going to be outrageous, right? And I think that's one trend too. We're seeing a little more price transparency, right? It's a little interesting because you think about you go to like a car dealer, right, or even like a forklift dealer, right? You know what the price is going to be, right? It's there, but
Yeah.
when you engage with a robotics or automation vendor, there's no real like price transparency, right? There's a lot of like, it takes a while to get a price. But I think some companies are seeing that and some are coming out with like more transparent pricing on that. And there's also like some tools out there. There's one called I Automate that's using like some AI as well to be able to just go in, and they're partnering with some of these robotics companies to just be able to go in and say like, I'm interested in something like this. This is what my facility size is. These are limitations I have. And it'll just give you like a ballpark price at least, so you could know like, oh, this thing's going to be $2 million and my budget's like 100 grand, right? So you're like, oh, well, that's not for me. I can look at something else. So those are some of like the trends I'm seeing, but there's a ton happening, and there's a ton of startups coming in the space. It's just been like constant. And it's really interesting to see that. It's interesting you guys mentioned there kind of in your intro there when talking about the ELDs, like, tech companies coming into the space, they have like, ideas on paper, right, that are good, and they have, technology that sure makes a lot of sense. They've created it outside of the operations environment, and they've just kind of found that there's a practical fit in operations. And a lot of times that's a big challenge because they don't have that operations background. They don't have that operations experience. And, it hits the floor of a warehouse and everybody's like, this doesn't make any sense, right? Like, what the hell are you guys thinking? Like, this isn't going to work in a regular operation. So yeah, those are a couple of trends there.
Hey, staying on this topic, Kevin, the whole automated thing it's all the rave, right? It's the bee's knees in our industry, just across the board. And on the driver's side, I mean, obviously the autonomous trucks are a big fear and a big worry to the industry. Not only because we have unmanned vehicles just driving down the road with 80,000 pounds that are 80,000 pounds, but B, what is this going to do for our workforce? People are just seeing this as a way to get rid of the American worker and for companies to save money. So what is it looking like on the warehouse side, man? Are you hearing and seeing a lot of those fears from the warehouse workers and other folks that, worried that a robot is going to come and take their job and maybe not even be able to do it as well and as efficient?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think there's some of those concerns. I think that, when I first started this podcast and started like learning more about the industry as a whole, aside from like just the operations that I was working in, there was a lot of discussion then about the idea of like a dark warehouse or lights out warehouse, right, where there's very minimal humans, if any humans, and everything's automated. And I think that had a ton of fear around it, right, for these workers and operations. Just, what does that even look like for, this workforce that is, pretty huge out there, right? It's a pretty big sector of the workers in the country. But I've heard a lot less talk about that in recent years, and I think that the realization is that within an operation, your operation has to be very consistent, very steady to make something like that work or even be feasible. And there's so much variability, so much flexibility, especially with like 3PLs, right? I mean, their typical client contract is like 1 to 3 years, right? And then they may have a different client, and that's a different type of product, a different size of product. There's a lot of variables in there that makes it tough to automate around. So I think that more robotics companies and automation companies are seeing that, and they're trying to come up with a more collaborative type solution to be able to assist the worker more than just replace the worker, right? I mean, I think, but when you boil it down, if you're speeding up one worker and you're taking their productivity from the productivity of one person to now the productivity of maybe like 3 people, then obviously that's 2 people that are not there anymore, or they're being moved around. And I think I've asked multiple operators and things that are doing automation or looking at automation, like, what's their plan for the workers, and I think there's some different ones. I mean, like I went to visit the Toyota material handling plant. They had introduced some automation, and they have large facility and they have a whole manufacturing facility too. So they were able to take some of that workforce that was displaced by automation and train them to do something else. But some smaller operations, they don't have like that breadth of things going on to be able to do that. But I think the key is like upskilling people to be able to get them to do something that otherwise was whatever the robot or automation was replacing. But I do think there's definitely like a fear. I mean, I'll say like my own experience. Last operation I worked in, I was a assistant plant manager there, so I was responsible for the day-to-day of distribution and light assembly manufacturing operations. And I met somebody, and we had this. We were moving these carts around for manufacturing, which had like all the parts and everything for the builds that the assembly people needed to do. But it was a lot of just somebody pushing a cart around all day, and they're heavy carts too. So we met somebody, and I was talking to them about that, and we looked at a potential robot to move those carts around, and it was nothing serious. It was not like we were engaging in this project. They were somebody local, and they were like, oh, like we can bring a demo unit in just so you can see what it looks like, and hang on to it for like 2 weeks, play around with it, see if it can even work for what you're doing before we explore like anything, right? And I really didn't think about it at the time. And they dropped that thing off, and I was playing with it on the floor. And within like 10 minutes of it being there, somebody rolled up on the forklift and it was like, "Oh, you're bringing that thing in to take away my job, right?" And I was like, "Oh," but I was caught off guard a little bit. Like, I was like that. I was not thinking that like in any sense at all. But I definitely think like there is that fear a little bit. And I think that I think it's a little generational too. When I see it, like, because I teach as well. I'm an adjunct professor in supply chain, and I actually asked my students this semester, like, are you worried about robots or AI or anything like taking your jobs? And they said no. But like
They're
some
gonna
older
take the jobs they
people,
don't want.
yeah, I think that's still a little bit of the key there, right? But yeah, I think but some older people like that guy that rolled up on the forklift. I mean, he was probably at the time. This was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. And, he's probably like in his 40s, I would say, or something like that. I've been working for the company for a long time, right? So I think there's definitely like that fear, like oh, we've been doing things this way for a long time. Now all of a sudden, like, going to bring a robot in or something, like, what does that mean for me? I mean, I think that's always going to be on the table. I mean, maybe 15 years from now, when there's more normalcy, if there's no more normalcy around that, like, maybe that's a different story. But yeah, I think it is like a big question for workers on what does that look like for me, and does that change my job?
Yeah, no, you just definitely answered my next question. Talking about sustainability and practical steps that warehouse managers can take. Because like you said, man, like, this stuff is not cheap, and especially now, like, the small medium sized businesses, like, your budget's tight, and to
Yeah.
spend that money and not be sure that it works, like, that can be a scary step. Um, so rolling into this next thing. So I see that you are CLTD certified. You got the certification.
Oh yeah, I'm certified. Yeah, I don't
Okay,
carry it
break,
on me.
break,
I don't
break
have it
that
on me
down
right
for
now.
those
Yeah.
that don't know, because I had to Google it myself. So I'm sure there's some others that don't know. But what does that
Yeah,
entail?
sure. Yeah. So around the same time when I was trying to learn more about the industry, came across this certification. And CLTD stands for Certified in Logistics, Transportation, Distribution. Certification that's put out by ASCM, which is the Association of Supply Chain Management, and that's a global supply chain association. And they do a lot of things for supply chain in general. Like, they have conferences, they have webinars, learnings, all this stuff. But one of their core things is this education component, and I think they have probably around 5 now. I think different full-on certifications for supply chain. But this one in particular is focused on transportation warehousing, as the name would suggest. So yeah, I found that and decided to do that. I think I got that in like 2018 or something like that. And yeah, it was really like a good kind of in-depth look. I mean, it's a full-on course. Took about 13 weeks. Like it's very similar to like one semester of a class, basically. Um, and then you sit for an exam, and you got to get like a certain score and able to get the certification. But yeah, it's like a globally recognized certification. Definitely would recommend to someone that is kind of in the same position, didn't get any kind of education around supply chain, specifically, or maybe they want to switch into like logistics side of things or distribution. That's a great way to get like a good overall kind of rounded knowledge base on that, and a lot of the terminology, methodologies, models, and things like that. But yeah, that was very interesting to go through that. But I think it's served me well from knowledge base, definitely.
And so I'm seeing here. So you're an adjunct professor at Rider University. When did you start
Yes.
that?
I started that the first semester back from the pandemic, actually. So that was like the fall of 2021. So I just wrapped up my I guess my 8th semester, not last week, but the week before. I just finished all my grading this morning, final grading for the
Nice.
students. Yeah. But yeah, I teach there. That's actually where I went to school too. So it's kind of like a full circle moment, and I'm teaching in like a classroom that I took class in, which is like I'm used to it now, but it was like a little strange in the beginning, right? I was like, oh, this is what my teachers were feeling when I was in the class. But yeah, I teach management information systems for global supply chain, which is talking about like technology in the supply chain, SAP. We do the simulations and different systems in there. And then I started teaching intro to supply chain as well, which has been really interesting to see like what students think about the supply chain, or why they are interested in supply chain in the first place, and seeing like since 21 to now. Like in 21 it was very like students were like my dad told me that supply chain is a good career, right? And now like fast forwards, and supply chain has gotten so much spotlight and shine, I guess. I guess not because of good things, right? COVID and all that stuff, but and disruptions. But now they're much more in tune with like, oh yeah, well, yeah, like I want to be in supply chain because I like the idea of transportation, right? Or I like the idea of warehousing, or I like the idea of manufacturing, and I like that it touches all these different things, and there's so many different facets to it, and it's pretty interesting to see like now they're coming in with like more of an understanding of what supply chain is versus like I heard it, or like somebody in my family said they work in supply chain, so it might be good for me. Yeah.
So, well, on this topic, what I want to know, and Hunter and I both have college degrees in logistics. I was a truck driver for 10 years, wanted to get out of the truck. Everyone told me, "Oh, you've got to go get a degree." And then when I got the degree, they said, "Oh, sorry, you need experience." But then no one would hire me because I didn't have the experience. But so, question is do you feel that the formal education, even at any point, maybe not even associates or bachelor's, maybe just certification like you talked about, but do you feel those things are important in logistics, compared to a lot of other industries that people are now just wanting to hire folks that they can just train by themselves and skip all the rigmarole?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting question, because I do think that I've seen a ton of people in warehousing that did not have a degree, right? Come in, they start out as material handler, picker, something like that, and I mean they end up working their way up to general manager running a building, right? Which is no small job. I mean that's you make good money doing that, and it's a lot of responsibility too, a lot of leadership. Um, so I don't think it's necessarily you need it, right, to be able to get in logistics and whether it's transportation or warehousing and get somewhere in your career. I think maybe where it comes into play is like if you want to transition from being in the building, running the building, things like that, to being in the corporate office, right? So kind of like going from I guess a concrete walker to a carpet walker, we'll say, right, in the office there. So I think maybe like if you want to do something like that, then maybe the degree is a little more helpful. Um, but I think the one thing from like a warehousing side, and I'm curious what you guys see maybe on like the transportation side too, is if you commit to a company, especially like some of these more family-owned companies or smaller mid-sized businesses, if you commit to them and you start with them, like there's a long way that you can go with them and move up and have a good career. But I think that's also one of the challenges for like kids these days too, is like committing to a company for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? I mean, that's a long time. I mean, I asked my students, so I'm like, how long do you expect to stay at your first job? Most of them are like 2, 3 years, right? So committing for the long term to get that growth, I think is a tough thing sometimes. But yeah, I mean, do I think you need a degree really to get into the logistics world? No, I don't think so. I think there's a ton of opportunity, there's a ton of demand, right? It's not going away, right? It's not going anywhere. We're always going to need to move stuff. um, and so I don't think it's really maybe my students shouldn't listen to this, but I don't think it's really that necessary to really break into the industry and find a way, right? And I think that I always encourage my students too to like, when they get an internship or a summer job, like go, unload freight from a trailer, right? Go work in a warehouse and be on the floor. Cause when you get to that higher level, leadership level or wherever it is, like that on the floor experience is going to do you so much good, right? To be able to understand that, not only to relate to people that you're leading, right, and managing, but also like just to understand like from continuous improvement perspective, like what is actually happening in my picking process, right? So to answer your question, like, do I think it's really necessary? No, I don't think so. I mean, I think definitely like if you have an interest in it and you want to get some type of education around it, like the certification, I think is like a great way to do that without a really long-term commitment. But yeah, that would be kind of my answer there.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. Like Pedro said, we both got degrees in it, and you know what, man, it's just a piece of paper. Like some of the most successful people you see in this industry, no matter what sector. I mean,
Yeah,
that some of them don't even have a high school degree, and I think logistics in a whole is not just a job or a career. Like it is truly a lifestyle. Like you have to live and
yeah,
breathe it and bleed it,
yeah,
man. And a lot of people don't understand that. So, when you're talking about, and even from my personal experience, getting out of college and it's like, oh, sweet, man. The second largest brokerage in the United States wants me to work for them. I must be doing something right. And then you figure out what's really going on in the background. And, I've worked for a few companies and they're all different, man. And just the I think the grit that you have to have in this industry is what carries you, because you can be the best employee in the world, but if you know say they lose, the company you're working for loses their biggest account, well, you can be doing as good as
mm,
you possibly can, but if they can't afford to keep you on, you're out the window, buddy. But
yeah,
I truly believe it is important, like you said, and we've had a lot of people say it before, man. Like if you're gonna do something, like you find any opportunity possible to get boots on the ground, get your hands on it, even if it's just for a day. Hop in a truck, go to a warehouse, see how it works. Like see what these people are doing, because then if you understand what they're going through on the day to day basis, then when we're sitting here behind our desk or out on the road, like you can kind of be in their mind for a minute there.
Yeah.
But speaking of travel, man, so I might be wrong here. You know, I'm pulling questions just from the research. So obviously you travel to a bunch of shows. You know, like Modex. I, I've heard that you're recording like 5 to 6 episodes a day, or like 10 to 15 interviews at trade shows like Modex. That's intense, man. Like, how do you
Yeah.
how do you manage that, and like how do you maintain that quality? Because like seems like, yeah, you got the same vibe as me and Pedro do, where it's like, all right, we're gonna get all this content, and then like we're busting out hours, man. You know, just trying to make it look good, but at the end of the day, it's just getting it out there. So, like,
Yeah.
what's your balance like?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting, like what you're saying there about like, getting on the floor, understanding and the lifestyle, right, of just logistics in general, whether it's like, from the warehouse side or transportation side. I mean, it's definitely a choice. And I think that's kind of like where I learned how to push my push my limits a little bit, right? Like how long can I be in a warehouse for? I've certainly been in there, later than I would like multiple times, right, to getting things done. But I think taking like some of that kind of you know grind a little bit and bringing that to the podcast like that. That's really like, when there's an opportunity to like get a bunch of content, I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna like bang this out and we're gonna do as much as we can. Like we just did ProMat in March, and we did like 47 interviews total in like 4 days, right? Yeah. So but the way we do it, right, is try to batch as much as possible. Um so like at ProMat, for example, what we did is like in the morning. Yeah, so like 2 hours, we're gonna live stream for 2 hours. Right, we're gonna live stream for 2 hours. We're gonna bring 10 guests on, like about 10 minutes each, and we're just gonna like cycle through them. Talk to them about like what's their company do, what do they see here, like what do they see in the industry. Like quick insights. And then we went out to like the booths as well and did some podcasts like in their booths and got to show like on video like what are they actually showing there. Um, but yeah, I mean, getting it together is it took a while to get there for sure. Like I mean, the first couple of years doing the podcast, like I was still working in the warehouse like full time. So I mean, I was just like, running home to like jump on and record with somebody, like because they were like, well, I want to record during my work hours, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, so like running home to do that, and then just like getting it together late at night and all that stuff. But now that I'm like full in on the new warehouse stuff is, we'll batch a bunch of content. So I'll just like set a day aside, like actually like tomorrow I'm recording for the podcast. I think I got like 5 interviews scheduled tomorrow, and I'll just do that like all day, and then that's good for like the next couple weeks, and just kind of get that all together, and then that gives us time like in between the recordings to then like pull out clips, do other type of stuff, and that's really been like a big unlock for me to get more content done and be able to talk to more people and get like more things out there, which is like part of like kind of the underlying mission of the new warehouse. So yeah, I mean, batching that content like it helps a lot. Like we did, I think I did like all the interviews for like almost the first half of the year, like between December and January, and we released like 8 episodes at a minimum a month, right? Um, so yeah, just keep going. Basically, I don't think about it, right? That it's like I'm doing all this, and I just keep going, keep going, keep going. That's about it.
I love that. So I know we're getting close to this hour mark, so this will be my last question. And Pedro, you can ask all the ones after this. But one of the things that I love most about the lounge or Dre's Junkies or anything we've done, making content and being in this, supply chain space, whatever you want to call it, trucking, warehousing, whatever it may be. Like my favorite thing is seeing how these shows bring people together in the background. And we have no idea, like people, get into business together, people helping people out. Like just, it blows my mind. So for you, what's been the most surprising and most rewarding feedback you've received from your listeners and your podcast and like how it's impacted their work, their daily lives.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a great question. I think the one piece of feedback that I've gotten pretty consistently and multiple times, that really resonates with me and really kind of I guess is in alignment with like the overall mission that I set out on is people that are coming from a different industry. They're coming into the warehousing industry now, and they were looking for something to learn from, much like I was, like 7-8 years ago, and they found my podcast, and they listened to the podcast to learn about the industry, learn about some of the jargon and the terms, and what certain companies are up to, and that's been like the best feedback, definitely. I had somebody recently actually that reached out, and they're working on a startup in the space, but they were like, oh, I want to know what you think about my startup, because my dad told me about your podcast. He listens to your podcast. He works in warehouse operations, and he knew I was in a startup, so he said, oh, you should listen to the new warehouse. And I got to meet both of them actually at Prominent, which was pretty cool. But yeah, I would say that's probably like the best feedback I get, is that people are learning from it, and whether they're in industry already, or they are coming into the industry and they're looking to learn more. I think that's the best feedback, because that's really like the goal for me, is to teach people, and think about them like the position that I was in when I started the podcast, and that was the whole reason to start it. Right now, other people can get that value too.
That's beautiful. That's a family story right there.
Yeah, that's a good story, right?
Well, Pedro,
Yep, I only got one question, and I literally thought that he was about to roll into it, and he stopped just short of it. So, final question, since we're ending things here about the show, the new warehouse. Looking where you started, where you're at now, all the things you've done, you've covered. Let's talk about the forward part. All right, in the future, what are you trying to do with the new warehouse? You got any niche interests you're trying to get to? Any projects or maybe special things coming up that you're rolling around in your head thinking about? Maybe I should do this.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because that is a question I have been asking myself for the last year, very, very intensely, I would say. Like, I'm trying to, because I think I've come to the realization that it's not a bad thing, but maybe long term it's not that great. Is that like I am very much the new warehouse, like it's me, right? Like I can't like just pull somebody and say like, oh, just be the host like for right now, right? Because it's very much me. So I've been thinking like, how does the new warehouse grow? How does the new warehouse expand? And certainly, do some projects on the side, like from consulting perspective. But one project, I know you guys have attended before, that we've been working on in collaboration with Nathan Cheney at Supply Chain, is Warehousing After Dark, which is like an event series for the warehousing industry, and that's been great. Developing that. That's something that I've been wanting to do as well. And Nathan came along, we connected. He's trying to do this supply chain social club thing. Wanted to do a warehouse night. So we've been doing that since September virtually, and we got our second in-person warehousing after dark coming up at the work conference in New Orleans, actually. So that should be a good time. We're going to be at the Tropical Isle with some hand grenades there. If anyone is familiar with Bourbon Street, but yeah, I see you there, Pedro. Yeah. But aside from that, I think that one of the goals when I started out too was to be able to give a platform for like other people to share their insights too, and certainly we do that through the interview style. But I think that long term, I think there's an opportunity to bring more people in, and do some maybe additional podcasts on like more niche down topics within warehousing, do more like blog posts, articles, writing, And I think one big component that we're missing for sure, to kind of build out almost like a media network in a sense, right? Is like news, right? We don't do too much like around current news or anything. Most of the interviews we do are very like evergreen, and they're around the topic that, if you listen like 2 years from now, it's still going to be somewhat relevant, right? It's not just like, oh, this happened today, and now it's totally different like a week from now. So I think that's one thing that we're missing a little bit, and kind of working on seeing how do we bring that into the fold, and how do we be kind of that daily source for warehouse news for people. So that's a little teaser, still in development. Haven't really told anybody about that actually. So we're live here too.
A
So
new
yeah,
lounge exclusive.
yeah. So putting that out there a little bit. But hopefully we'll have some kind of structure and formulation around that by the end of this year, and that'll kind of lead into like, what's the next phase of the new warehouse look like, and grow from there. There was like a little bit of time where, I wanted to do maybe some warehousing type services, and things like that, but and did try that for a little bit. Had a small 3PL for a little bit, but I love focusing on the content and the education piece as well. So I think growing that in a more robust way, more options, more ways to digest and educate people in the industry, I think is really kind of the forward looking way to go.
Well, appreciate it, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks
That's
for asking.
exciting, man. And I did. Pedro and I understand that so much. Like, dude, it is every day. Like,
yeah.
All right, this didn't work. How are we going to change it? Let's improve on it. And then if it doesn't work, we go back to the drawing board. And it's just a constant improvement. But like you said, man, just the opportunity to really educate and, bring some value to the table rather than just rehashing all the same news, showing graphs that nobody knows how to read, and just pumping, ringing their own bell, if you want to call it that. That's not what it's all about, man. Like this industry is something special, and a lot of people don't understand that, man. Every single piece of the supply chain matters. Like, if it stopped today, dude, I wouldn't even want to know what next week looked like. So
yeah. I mean, that's like the world stops basically.
And Kevin, I want to also double down and say how much I feel that Hunter and I resonate with you on the fact, you said this early in the show that, when you bring on guests or you talk about things, you think about the stuff you're interested in, or the things you were interested in or needed knowledge on. And that was Hunter Mind's thing. It was like, let's just not have a show just for show's sakes and just bring on random people. Like, what are things that we're interested in? Who are people that we meet? And you're like, damn, that's a pretty good story. I bet other people would like to hear about that, So, and I think that is something that more specifically people in our industry, when it comes to content, they don't think about that. They just think, oh, I bet people want to know this. It's like, dude, just think about where you were at in the stuff that you needed to know and you were thirsty for, or the stuff that you already knew but found out a little extra tidbit that made something even more interesting. Like, those are the things that you want to share. And I'll end finally on this thing, and I'll hand it back to Hunter. Is I nor Hunter and I don't think a lot of other people that don't do this realize how difficult it is to keep evolving in the stuff that you do, and changing it. A good friend of ours says, oh man, most podcasts only make it, to 10 episodes and then they die out. And here Hunter and I are almost 2 years into this, couple hundred episodes. And honestly, I understand why, because it's like, damn, we've talked about so much. Like, what else do you talk about again, or what do you change or make different? That it is a constant struggle, man, trying to make sure you're being entertaining, engaging, putting out good information, and and also growing yourself. So that's it. That's all I got to say, man. Kevin, I loved everything you had to say, man, on the podcast thing, the warehousing stuff, dude. Like, freaking awesome.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on. Definitely, and I definitely agree with you there. I mean, I think it's, people want to hear about the things that they're dealing with and commiserate with. And it's funny. I just talked to a 3PL owner the other day, and she's like, the only people that understand like what I'm going through are other 3PL owners, right. So it's kind of like, how do we give that voice, and how do we bring those stories together? I definitely think we're on the same page there. So really appreciate you guys bringing me on here and being able to join in on the lounge.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Well, I'm glad you're sitting down because I have a great thing to tell you. Are you ready, Kevin?
Yeah, sure.
You are now an official lounge lizard, which is a term of endearment. So anytime you want to come on our show to give updates, announcements, you see a guest that you're interested in and want to ask questions, you call me or Pedro, and you are always welcome, man. You always have a seat at the table. So thank you so much for cutting out some time with us, man. I know you're on the road, but before you hop off here, man, you got any exiting comments, plugs, things you want to say, anything? Speak your mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely, if you're tuning in, you should check out the Logistics Lounge on a consistent basis. Support these guys for sure. But yeah, I think for me, if anybody wants to learn more about warehousing, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's where I'm the most active, or head to newwarehouse.com, and you can find us on any podcast platform that's out there. YouTube too. I think this is on YouTube right now. So if you're on YouTube, you can check us out there as well. But yeah, I would say to anybody in the industry, keep going. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of exciting things happening. And for anybody that's thinking about getting into the industry, same thing. There's a lot of stuff happening, huge demand, and a lot of exciting things too. So don't be afraid of the warehouse. Jump in, I would say.
Love that. Need to get forklift certified so I can finally be a real man.
Yeah, you got to get that car. Yeah, so we get you on the reach truck, lifting 2,000-pound pallets 40 feet in the air.
Dude, I would love that. I would let it lift me in the air.
Well, you can't do that. Yeah, that's OSHA regulations right there.
Only
you already lost your certification.
We're just joking, OSHA. If you're listening,
only if you get caught.
You say you already lost your certification. Yeah.
We were doing it outside the building. It doesn't count. Okay, we were out in the open, raising ourselves up. We're trying to check the roof out, make sure there were no leaks.
Yeah. I'll just keep playing forklift certification or forklift simulation on my phone.
Hunter goes into the class and be like, Hunter, this is the 18th time that you have had to take this class this year.
Yeah.
It just excites me, man.
Yeah. Just try to stay fresh. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yep. Well, Pedro, you ready to wind this thing on down?
I am, man. I'm ready if you're ready, man. We'll go ahead and talk about get these final sponsor breaks out the way, and then we'll come back and talk about what we got coming up Friday and next week and all that stuff. Unless Kevin has anything he needs to add.
No, I'm all good. Thank you guys once again for having me on here. Happy to be a lounge lizard here, and I'm in a lot over here, so maybe I should find a lot lizard. I don't know, but
we do not condone that. We do not.
Well, we have the disclaimer.
Me neither.
We do not condone.
Hey,
that.
support your local economy, man.
If you do find them though, tell them about truckers against trafficking. TAT. There you go. If you find one, tell them about them. That'll help them out.
You got it.
So we're going to wind it down. Kevin, you can stay with us, man. Nobody's making you leave. We're just going to do a quick little wind down sponsor break here, and then we'll go back and do a little post show thing for probably about 5 minutes if you want to hang out. But we know you're on the road, so understandable if you got to go. And if you do hop out, brother, please be safe, man. Out there on the roads, man. Them driving people out there, they're crazy today. I'm telling you, got their driver's license on a damn Cracker Jack box.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, but what you can't get out of a Cracker Jack box is quality truck parking. So, hey, if you got one truck, two truck, 50 truck, one trailer, 100 trailers, a gajillion trailers, you need somewhere safe, secure to park them. We have got the solution for you with our good friends over at Freight Ninja. You go to their website, freightninja.com, book a spot, or give them a call, 844-303-1505. if you do like Cracker Jacks and you just so happen to be hauling a load of them, you want to make sure they're protected because that is a hot commodity. I would be willing to bet that the prizes inside of those things are worth a whole whopping $50. You sure don't want that to get taken. You most importantly don't want the truck and trailer that it's on to get taken. And that's why you need to be doing business with Trailer Century. Got an amazing little device that will not only prevent theft, but if something does get stolen, it's going to track and it's going to let you know exactly where it is.
Buy our hats. We got new hats on the website, Pedro. Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
I have not. This is the first I'm hearing about this. What the heck?
Yeah. Look at that. Fancy little logo hats we got. Black and white, all black, white and black, all white. And hey, you want to check this out? Boom! Man, we even got pink ones.
Them pink ones is hot right there, bro.
I know, man.
I want one of those white ones with the pink on it. Oh, hey,
yeah.
Hunter, idea. We find a way to make that part of our breast cancer awareness package in October with Nick.
Buddy, you preach to the choir.
Ooh, man. Yeah, dude, I like that.
Speaking of long haul, Paul, and I'm thinking about Mr. Santa Claus who kept his reefer in his reefer. You can go on and get yourself a reefer hat. If y'all got any ideas on your trailer that you're pulling, holler at me. But I'll tell you this much. I'm a reefer guy, so I made some reefer hats. If you want any other hats, bring it on. But you can find all of this at logisticsloungeshow.com. And you know what? Hey, shameless plug. We even got some drayage junkie hats on here. This one's not my favorite, but you know what? Prove me wrong, buy it, and see how good it looks. We're going to be pumping out some more stuff. Once again, logisticsloungeshow.com. $28.88. That's not too bad for a good hat.
No, man. It's a damn good deal.
But hey, do you want to break the bad news or should I?
I mean, I can break, but it's bad news / good news for next week. Well, I mean, okay. I say it was double bad news, but we're going to turn the double bad news into at least one good news.
Okay. I'll do it. So this Friday, I will not be able to make the show. And we have decided to postpone the show because my little sister is pregnant with her new husband. And it is also my niece's 3rd birthday party. So I'm busting it down to Georgia. Pedro's got to take care of some family stuff. But also, we got to rest up for Large Cars and Guitars next week, which once again is in Bristol, Tennessee. So if you want to see why it's called the Smoky Mountains, come and see that fireworks show. And my, oh my, it is a time. But are we doing shows next week, Pedro?
We are. We're doing one. We're doing one. And it was going to be a spectacular one to go out on. We were going to have the other Matt Silver, or I mean, maybe he is the Matt Silver and the one we had on is the other. I don't know. We still got to get them together and figure that out. I mean, maybe we'll rock, paper, scissors it. You know what I mean? Whoever wins is.
I'm the best at rock, paper, scissors. Yeah. Okay. 3-time national championship in elementary school. Prove me wrong.
All right, bro.
I will do that.
We'll bring you into the fight. But Matt unfortunately had to decline today. He had some things popping up that he's got to take care of, so he won't be here. So what we are going to do, we are going to do a Large Cars and Guitars or Bust Freestyle Wednesday, a Truck the What Wednesday, Large Cars or Bust. That's going to be the name of the show. We're just going to hang out for maybe an hour and chill out and just talk about what's going on. We'll bring Mr. Talamo on since he's going to come with us. Maybe we'll get Charles Gracie to come on because he's coming with us, and we'll just shoot the shit for about an hour, and that's about it. So there you go. Again, bad news, no show Friday, but good news because it's a Truck the What Wednesday next week. So it's gonna be lovely.
I'm pretty jacked about that.
Me too, man. But that's all I got, man. I'm actually going to go and I'm going to look at my son's new tattoo, his first tattoo, man. Isn't that fun? I don't know if everyone's like that. Me, when I first turned 18, the two things I wanted to do was I wanted to buy a pack of cigarettes legally, I wanted to get into a bar legally, and I wanted to get a tattoo. And I did those, I don't know, probably in that order actually. Yeah. Yeah. That was my first tattoo right there of my son, man. So
There you go, brother.
Yeah. But that's it, man. That's all I got. So what about you, man? You done? You good? You got any more updates or anything?
Yeah, if y'all want to watch Strange Junkies next Tuesday at 12 o'clock Central Time, we got Ian Weiland, self-proclaimed Dre's daddy. He is a menace when it comes to the port of Long Beach, and it's going to be a great show. And yeah, catch us on all the socials, logisticsloungeshow.com, and y'all go check out truckandnewshub.com. Once again, the official news source of the Logistics Lounge. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and I'm just going to do a shameless plug here. Clint Weston, I'm voting for you for president because I'm going to catch you on Shoreline Capitol Hill. You're the man. So is Trailer Century. So is Freight Validate. So is Freight Ninja. Y'all just hop on the train because it's going to be a wild ride, and we just getting started.
Oh man, I love you, Hunter. All right, that's gonna do it for us. We're gonna get out of here, man. And as I always say, chunk them deuces. Mr. Hound, roll that beautiful bean footage.
The views and opinions expressed on this show by its guests are not necessarily those of Lounge Media Group or the show host. So if you sue someone, make sure it's the party responsible for hurting your feelings. Also, grow up, be an adult, and understand not everyone thinks like you. And that's okay.